오늘을 만들어 나온 시간들. 화합은 평화의 시대를 이끌어 나왔고 우리가 그려보는 미래는 서로가 어우러지는 평화의 세계. 대립과 갈등으로 치닫고 있는 오늘의 문제를 새로운 비전으로 해결하기 위한 희망의 새 시대가 출발되고 있습니다. 지구상 유일의 분단국인 대한민국. 체제와 이념의 갈등으로 인해 분단된 현실 속에서 평화와 통일을 이루기 위한 노력들은 지속되었고 문선명 한학자 총재 양이분께서는 새로운 평화 사상과 평화 체제를 통해서만이 남북 통일이 가능함을 일깨워 주시며 통일운동을 이끌어 나오셨습니다.
여러분, 우리는 오늘 이 자리에서 우리 조국의 남북 통일은 기어코 오야만 한다고 선언하는 바입니다. 그리고 그 때가 다가오고 있습니다. 이제 필요한 것은 국내외에서 모든 국민들이 함께 뭉쳐 남북 통일을 신앙화하는 운동인 것입니다.
실패를 두려워하지 않는 불굴의 의지를 갖고 시련을 이겨내며 한 걸음 또 한 걸음 평화의 세계를 닦아 나온 길. 자유와 통일, 평화와 행복을 향한 희망의 여정. 2018년 아프리카 세네갈에서 출발된 월드 서밋을 시작으로 지구촌 7개 대륙에서 초국가, 초종교적으로 정치, 경제, 종교, 학술, 언론, 예술 등 전 분야에 걸쳐 공생, 공영, 공의의 평화 사상을 견지해 국제적인 갈등과 대립을 해소하기 위한 평화 체제를 만들어 나온 시간들. 이러한 노력은 코로나로 인해 세상이 정지해 있던 순간에도 멈추지 않았고, 평화를 소원하는 도전은 신통일 세계와 신통일 한국을 위한 희망 전진 대회로 이어졌습니다. 국가 이기주의에 기반한 정책과 자기 국민을 우선시하는 오늘날의 세계에서 지구촌 모두가 상생하는 해법을 찾아 나온 희망의 길.
សន្តិភាពមិនអាចសម្រេចបានដោយហែកហែកនោះទេយើងត្រូវជំរុញការចេះស្រឡាញ់គ្នាទៅវិញទៅមកដល់គុណនិងតម្លៃនិងការគិតគូរពោះដល់មនុស្សជាតិរួមរស់ជាមួយគ្នាដោយសន្តិភាពនិងសុខដុមការគោរពភាពចម្រុះនៃជំនឿសាសនានិងវប្បធម៌នៅក្នុងនិងរវាងសង្គមជាតិនីមួយៗ កម្ពុជាត្រៀមខ្លួនជាស្រេចក្នុងការចូលរួមចំណែកជាមួយដៃគូពាក់ព័ន្ធទាំងអស់ដើម្បីគោលដៅដ៏ពិសិដ្ឋនេះ
신통일 세계를 위한 온라인 희망 전진 대회를 통해 세계인 앞에 마음과 마음을 연결하고 따스한 온기를 나누며 모두가 함께 만들어야 할 평화의 세계를 제시했고, 전 세계 10억 명 이상이 함께한 가운데 마침내 싱크탱크 2022 출범의 결실을 보았습니다.
이제 한반도의 통일은 이루어집니다. 이 한반도로 시작한 신태평양 문명권의 문화는 아시아 대륙을 통해서 전 세계로 활발히 펼쳐 나가고 있습니다.
인류가 만들어온 분열과 갈등을 해결하기 위해 지혜와 역량을 모아 하나 되어 나온 오늘. 이러한 운동은 한반도 평화 서밋으로 이어져 한반도를 축복과 평화의 땅으로 만들기 위한 노력으로 결실됐습니다.
We work together with wisdom, sincerity, and resolve. I do believe we can illuminate the path to peace both on the Korean Peninsula and beyond.
The strategy of Think Tank 22 is clear and straightforward. Bring together the world's leading experts from a wide range of professional fields to work together collaboratively to pursue improved relations between the Republic of Korea and North Korea. In short, we want to get the world's best in the same boat and ask them, all of you, to chart a path forward to reconciliation. Then we need to work together as one team. 갑시다.
남북 공동수교 국가 157개국을 중심으로 전현직 정상들과 다양한 분야의 전문가들과 함께한 한반도 평화 서밋. 한 사람의 꿈이 아닌 100만 명, 1000만 명이 같은 꿈, 같은 비전을 가지고 간다면 인류가 꿈꿔온 신세계가, 신통일 한국이 한 걸음 더 우리에게 다가올 것입니다. 희망을 만들어가는 사람들, 우리에게는 강한 신념과 의지가 있습니다. 모두의 마음과 마음이 하나가 될 때 평화는 한반도에서 세계로 향하고 대한민국은 그 중심에서 분단의 갈등과 대립을 해소하고 세계의 통합과 협력을 이끌어 앞서서 시대를 밝히는 등불이 되어 나아갈 것입니다.
오늘 이 자리가 있기까지의 과정을 영상을 통해서 만나보.
We have seen the video representing our purpose of our meeting. I am Shin Young-il. Nice to meet all of you. Your moderator. This conference is being held from August 11th to 15th with the theme of New Unified Korea and Lasting Peace in the World. This conference is attended by over 800 leaders from the various walks of life, representing 157 countries that have diplomatic relations with North Korea and South Korea. In order to establish lasting peace based on the mutual prosperity, justice, and coexistence, we are here to promote the cause of peace, and I welcome all of you. Now, let us cheer each other up with a big round of applause. Now, I declare the Summit 2022 Leadership Conference open, which will serve as a cornerstone for the lasting peace in the world. With a big round of applause. Now we're going to have the opening performance. Now we're going to have Little Angels, the Angels of Peace. Would you please welcome them with a big round of applause?
There comes a time when you hear the certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying, and it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest scheme of all. We can go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere is to make us change. We are all a part of God's great family, and the truth in our love is all we need. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's no choice to making, receiving our life. It's true to make a better day, just you and me. When you're down and out, let's sing some of it all. But if you just believe, there's nowhere we can fall. Let us realize that a changing only come when we stand together as one. We are the one, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's no choice to making, receiving our life. It's true to make a better day, just you and me. It's true to make a better day, just you and me. It's true to make a better day, just you and me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers, what are we? Let me work with my brother in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn goal. To take this moment and live this moment in this entirely. 감사합니다. Thank you very much. 아리가또 고자이마스.
네, 여러분 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 올해로 창단 60주년을 맞은 리틀 엔젤스 예술단의 멋진 무대 함께 보셨습니다. 이제 대표단 입장이 있겠습니다. 모두 자리에서 일어나 주십시오.
Delegations entering this stage. Would you please all rise?
대표단 입장.
Enter the delegations.
여러분 지금 2022 리더십 컨퍼런스 대표단이 입장하고 있습니다. 큰 박수로
Right now, the
환영해
delegates
주십시오.
for the 2022 Summit Leadership Conference is entering the conference hall.
의장대와 리틀 엔젤스 예술단이 대표단을 맞이할 준비를 하고 있습니다. 자, 먼저 공동 조직위원장이신 윤영호
The
조직위원장과
co-chair,
토마스
the
월시
Yoon Young-ho,
세계
and the
UPF
Thomas
의장께서
Walsh, the
먼저 입장하시겠습니다.
UPF International are entering first.
한반도 평화 서밋 의장대 사열 아래 평화의 작은 천사 리틀 엔젤스 예술단의 환영을 받으며
They are receiving
대표단이
the welcome
입장을 하고 있습니다.
by the honor guards
국경과 이념,
for the World
종교와
Peace Summit.
문화, 그 모든 경계를 넘어
They are all dedicating themselves to the unified Korea and the lasting peace, transcending the barriers of ideology, national boundaries, religion, and culture.
공생의 경제, 더불어 참여하는 공영의 정치,
This conference marks
더불어
the
의로운
beginning
세상을 추구하는
of mutual
공예,
prosperity
신통일 한국과
Universal
신통일
values
세계를 이루기 위한
and the
비전과
unified Korea and the
구체적 방안을
unified world.
이끄는 역사적인
This is
입장이며
a historic moment
출발의 현장입니다.
for the entire world.
인류가 간절히 구해온 항구적 평화는 우리가 지금
The
목표하고
lasting
있는
peace we
것처럼
have desired
세계 모든 정상과
will be
지도자들이
realized
국익을
when all
넘어
the leaders
인류적
of the
사랑과
world
보편적 가치를
come together
중심하고 한마음 한뜻이 돼
and dedicate
함께
themselves.
협력할 때 이루어질 수 있음을 다시 한번 확인하고
And we are
있습니다.
reminded of that again today.
여러분 다시 한번 힘찬 환영의 박수로
Would you please give them
맞아주십시오.
a big round of applause to welcome them one more time? Thank you.
서밋 2022 리더십 컨퍼런스의 대표단이 여러분의 환영
The
속에
delegations of the
입장을
summit
하고 있습니다. 모두
Entering right now.
환영합니다.
We cordially
의장대와
welcome all of you.
리틀 엔젤스 예술단의 환영을 받으면서 입장하고 있는
Little Angels and the honor
2021
guard are
리더십
welcoming
컨퍼런스
the
대표단입니다.
delegates for the leadership conference.
국경과 이념, 종교와 문화, 그 경계를 뛰어넘어 신통일
Transcending the
한국과
barriers
항구적 평화
of
세계
national
실현을 위해
boundary, ideology.
수고하시는 분들 오늘 이 자리에 한데
It's a
모였습니다.
great honor to have them all together in one place.
공동 조직위원장이신 윤영호 공동 조직위원장과 토마스 월시 세계 UPF 의장께서
Co-chair Yoon Young-ho and Dr.
오늘 이
Thomas
자리에
Walsh
함께 하시는 분들을 환영해
are welcoming the delegates
있습니다.
one by one.
이분들께서는 특히 평화 헌장을 발휘해서 전 세계 지도자들에게
They are going to declare a peace charter to give hope
주실 겁니다.
to the people in the world.
서밋 2022 리더십 컨퍼런스
Summit 2022 Leadership Conference
세계 각국에서 온 대표단의
will be
입장이
joined by the delegates
이어지고 있습니다.
from all over the countries in the world. We cordially welcome all of you.
한반도 평화 서밋 의장대의 사열 아래 평화의 작은 천사 리틀 엔젤스 예술단의 환영을 받으면서
The honor guards of peace and Little Angeles are welcoming all the delegates
입장을 하고 있습니다.
from the countries
끊이지 않고
in all of the
있는
world.
가운데 국경을 뛰어넘어 이념을 초월해
This is a truly
이 자리에
historic
함께
moment
모인 여러분들께서는
transcending the barriers of religions and ideologies.
항구적 평화 세계 실현을 위해
We are here to establish a lasting peace
수고하시는 주인공들입니다.
and bring about unified Korea.
환영합니다. 어서 오십시오.
We welcome you from the bottom of our hearts.
오늘 정말 많은 분들께서 이 자리에 함께하고 계시는데요.
We have a lot of
한번 환영을 받으면서
audiences.
입장을
And we are
해보는
expressing
모습입니다.
welcome, heartfelt welcome to these delegates.
네, 어서 오십시오. 환영합니다.
Welcome, all of you.
더불어 잘 사는 공생의 경제, 더불어 참여하는 공영의 정치,
Mutual prosperity,
더불어
universal
의로운
values,
세상을 추구하는 공의의
coexistence.
통일 한국과
These are the
세계를
ideals that we are aspiring to.
구체적 방안을 이끄는 역사적인 입장과 출발을 함께 하셨습니다.
And this historic moment represents our dedication and commitment to
입장을
that
마무리하도록
causes.
하겠습니다. 모두 자리에 착석해
Would you all
주십시오.
please be seated?
이제 피스 오퍼링
Now it's time for
평화
peace
축원의
offering.
순서입니다. 피스 오퍼링은 초종교 합수식과 평화
This will be
기원으로
conducted
진행되겠습니다.
with the prayers
먼저
and
합수 의식을 거행하겠습니다. 남북 공동 수교를 맺은 150개
mixing the
80여 개
waters.
종단을 대표해서 10분의 저명한 종교
10 religious leaders representing 80 denominations from 157 countries are going to have the mixing of water of peace.
기독교 사무엘 하데벨 선지자
The prophet Samuel Ruch representing Christianity, and Mansur Diouf representing Islam, and Professor Snyder representing Sikh,
에드워드 목사
and Pastor WCLC,
가레드 소비 세계 회장
the chairman Mandiagyo,
대표해서 세계 평화 통일
and
가정연합
on behalf of
이기성
Korea,
선심원장,
Lee Gi-sung,
기독교
from
KCC
UPF,
공동의장 김
and
스테반
Pastor Kim
목사,
Stevan
불교
representing
법황교
Christianity,
도봉 스님,
and the Buddhist
대종교
monk Dobong,
총전교 원영진
and
총전교
Won Young-jin representing Daejongyo,
최근창 전
and the director Choi,
회장께서
former
해주시겠습니다.
director Choi Gun-chang of
이제
Seungkyungwan
평화 합수식을
are with us for this ceremony. Now we are going to have mixing of water, a peace ceremony.
합수해주시길 부탁드립니다.
Please mix the
합수대적으로
water.
모여주십시오. 1, 2,
1, 2, 3.
합수.
Mix the water, please.
종교 지도자께서 합수를
The religious leaders
진행하고
are conducting the mixing of water of peace
모두의 염원을 담은 합수
with the hope for peace on the Korean Peninsula.
합수가 진행됐습니다. 이제 평화 기원의 순서입니다.
Now it's time for prayer
평화와 통일을 기원하며
and reflection.
폴라 화이트 목사께서
Pastor Paula
평화
White
기원을
will
해 주시겠습니다.
give us a prayer.
Good morning. Esteemed leaders from all faiths, nations, and backgrounds, I want to congratulate you all for joining the Summit 2022 and Leadership Conference and for contributing to the cause of the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Thank you for your continual stellar leadership. Dr. Yoon Young-ho, you're such a blessing. As the director of the General of the Universal Peace Federation, along with the Summit 2022 and Leadership Conference, we thank God for you. Amen. Let us also, amen. Let us also remember the great Prime Minister, Abe, as we continue to lift up the Japanese people in prayer and their country. I'm very moved that so many nations are assembled here to honor God and to cooperate for peace. I sincerely thank all the faith leaders assembled as we pray for you and for your calling, for the path of peace that we lead with truth and love. Thank you to all the elected officials, including the heads of states that are here to lead the world with God's blessing so that the world can end the era of war. I want to recognize all the leaders from Africa, a place that is very dear to me. Who are here to open the doors of reconciliation and love and to bring Africa and full cooperation and unity. I want to thank Prime Minister Birgi Rafini, the Prime Minister of Niger from 2011 to 2021, who is now the Secretary General of SINSAD, the 25 nations in Northern Africa. I also want to thank President Macky Sall of Senegal, who is supporting this effort as the President of the Africa Union. I want to thank Prime Minister Hun Sen, the President of ASEAN, and the many representatives from the Asian countries that are represented here. Also, it is inspiring to see such great leaders from Europe and the Middle East, Central and South America, the Caribbean, as well as the United States and Canada, all gathered here for a common cause. I think about Psalm 133, how the Bible tells us, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." It is like the precious oil on the head running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion, for the Lord has commanded the blessing forevermore. Speaking of blessing, I had the wonderful blessing and honor of being with Mother Moon on many different occasions, and want to thank you, Mother Moon, for your courageous path that you and your husband, the Reverend Moon, began when you, as Christian leaders, escaped the communist persecution in North Korea. Reverend Moon suffered in a death camp for 2 years and 8 months, and yet came out of that suffering with a heart of love to heal the North. Mother Moon came to the South as a 5-year-old girl with her devout mother and grandmother to follow the call of Jesus. She has kept that dream and call of bringing her homeland back together again. Mother Moon, we all came here to this summit in 2022 because we want you to know you are succeeding. And the peaceful reunification of Korea is sure to come. I'm so moved by your great support and hope that Africa will now rise with God's blessing. In Dr. Moon's memoir entitled Mother Peace, she said, holding on to the frame of the door of no return, I shed tears along with the mayor of Gorée and everyone present as I prayed for Africa and all her sons and daughters worldwide will be freed from the pain and resentment caused by slavery. Mother Moon, we stand with you in your assignment from God and believe in its evidence as we see the fruit for peace and for family. By the love of Jesus and the healing power of God, we believe for key faith and political leaders to continue to come together with Mother Moon to realize reconciliation. Because she has shared God's love, agape love. Chairman Kim of North Korea has invited her to come to the North. And Mother Moon, you know that I pray for you daily and I want to go with you. I believe that God will pave a path of prosperity and peace. And as Zechariah 4:6 says, not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit of the Lord. Let us pray. Father, I come to you in the name of Jesus. It's an honor that we have gathered here. I pray that you bless every leader, that you continue to extend long life to Mother Moon according to Psalm 91 as we secure her life, her purpose, her calling in the earth. Let people hold up our hands for the vision, the dream, the calling that you have mandated. And may we be ambassadors and agents on assignment for your purpose in the earth to bring forth peace specifically for the reunification of Korea. Now anoint and bless all that we do and let it honor you. In the precious name that I pray, my Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
감사합니다. 함께해 주신 11분의 종단 지도자분들께
I'd like to
감사의 박수를
would you please give
부탁드리겠습니다.
them a big round of applause? Thank you.
평화를 기원하는 순서 여러분과 함께했습니다. 감동적인 합수 의식과
We had a beautiful ceremony of mixing water peace.
이제
Now it's time for the opening ceremony, opening speech. The co-chair, Yoon Young-ho chair, will give us the opening speech.
세계 평화 통일 가정연합 세계 본부장과
Dr. Yoon Young-ho is the Director General for UPF and FFWPU and has been working for the sake of peace. He is also a member of the Sanak Peace Prize Committee and also was the co-chair of the Executive Committee for Think Tank 2022 and the Summit 2022 and Leadership Conference. Let us welcome Dr. Yoon with a warm round of applause.
Respected Excellencies, peace-loving world leaders, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Yoon Young-ho, co-chair of the Organizing Committee of Summit 2022 and Leadership Conference. It is my great honor to address you today on behalf of host and founder, Dr. Hak-Jae Moon. Welcome to Korea. Welcome to Summit 2022 and Leadership Conference. Many of you have come a long way in order to participate in person, and millions of others are participating virtually through two-way live stream or through various broadcasts and social media networks. I'm very pleased to meet you. My heart is so moved. Thank you so much for attending today's event. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to be a challenge for all citizens around the world. Today's world is characterized by despair more than hope, suffering more than happiness, conflict and discord more than harmony. The last World Summit 2022 provided the world with hope about a lasting world of peace and realizing peace on the Korean Peninsula. So today's event on this victorious foundation will become a precious cornerstone for the heavenly unified Korea and unified world. Since today's event is taking place in Korea and is being broadcast throughout Korea, I will speak in Korea. We have a translation in 9 languages. Please select your preferred translation. 존경하는 우리 전현직 정상 그리고 평화를 사랑하는 평화 지도자 여러분, 지금 전 세계는 코로나 팬데믹의 영향으로 정치, 경제, 보건, 복지 등 전 방위적 분야의 심각한 피해와 국가 이기주의에 기반한 자기 국가와 자기 국민을 우선시하는 정책과 풍조로 화합과 상생보다는 분열과 갈등으로 점철된 세계로 향하고 있습니다. 특별히 환태평양을 중심으로 정점에 달한 열강들의
remains one of the only divided countries in the world, caused by the struggle for supremacy between the various superpowers in the world, as well as the Russian invasion of Ukraine that began on February 24, has heralded the start of a new division around the world. Furthermore, China, which remains the country fundamentally harmful to international order based on democracy, we can see that there is still a major economic struggle happening around the world. And also there's a major struggle based around values and also around values such as freedom. And while China struggles for supremacy in all directions, it is raising concern for peace-loving citizens around the world. Respected peace-loving leaders, peace is our dream, it is our vision. However, when looking at today's world, peace is no longer an ideal, an aspiration, but peace is indeed necessary in today's world. Pride and also illegal weapons of mass destruction around the world are bringing great distress around the world. But also we can see that selfishness and greed and also the development of various weapons of mass destruction is really bringing the world to the brink of destruction. And as a result, we see a great shift in the need for lasting peace around the world. It is for this reason that Reverend Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, co-founder of the Universal Peace Federation, spoke on conflicts and divisions that have prevailed on the Korean Peninsula, as well as speaking about the various problems afflicting human society today. She also emphasized the need of the values of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values, the ideal of one family of humanity under God. For unity to transcend, and for unity to transcend nation, race, religion, and culture, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon has advocated a headwing ideology for a heavenly unified Korea and a world of lasting peace. The realization of such a vision of peace has led the Universal Peace Federation to host various summits and conferences, as well as launch the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, and various regional summits took place throughout the world, in Africa, Latin America, Europe, the Asia Pacific, all throughout the world. Various summits and also gatherings have taken place to promote the need for lasting peace, but also to find solutions to realizing peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And in February of 2022, 120 current and former heads of state and 10,000 VIPs from around the world gathered for World Summit 2020. After that, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, using an online platform called PeaceLink, rallies of hope were held together with various national and private broadcasters. Millions of people were touched by the message of peace from VIPs from throughout the world. Representatives of the International Summit Council for Peace and Parliamentarians for Peace gathered together under Think Tank 2022, which is a platform aimed at bringing peace-loving leaders to provide wisdom on realizing lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula and solve the critical challenges of the day. Based on Think Tank 2022, representatives from 157 nations with diplomatic ties to North and South Korea gathered, and from February 11 till 14, we held the Grand Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula. This served as a venue for unity and international cooperation. Honorable Ban Ki-moon, the 8th UN Secretary General, Samdech Prime Minister Hun Sen, who is also chair of the ASEAN, were the co-chairs of the organizing committee for this summit. President Donald Trump, 45th President of the US, President Macky Sall, the chair of the African Union, Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of Nigeria, President Michel Temer of Brazil, His Excellency José Manuel Barroso, the 11th President of the European Commission, President Ilir Meta of Albania, and various other peace-loving leaders, 85 current and former heads of states gathered to share their hope for peaceful reunification on the Korean Peninsula. Excellency Mike Pence and also Excellency Mike Pompeo also honored us with their vision and wisdom on how to bring peace to this region. Furthermore, Mr. Jim Rogers also offered words from the point of view of an economic leader. More than 2 million people gathered online and in person, and more than 3,517 broadcasters reached more than 3 billion views, cumulated views around the world. In particular, the leaders who gathered for World Summit 2022 supported peaceful reunification on the Korean Peninsula based on the Seoul Declaration of one people, one peninsula, one culture. And the Seoul Declaration is bringing one culture of peace around the world and is now being expanded towards realizing a peace charter during this summit and leadership conference. And in each nation and each region, various legislative efforts are being taken to promote the peace charter as a legacy of peace for future generations. This summit and leadership conference will include keynote addresses by various leaders, as well as the proposal of the Universal Peace Charter. Furthermore, during this summit and leadership conference, we are honored that we can also discuss about the importance of youth and future generations. His Excellency Brigadier Rafini, the Executive Secretary of SENSAD, which represents 25 African nations, and 25 ministers of youth from Africa have gathered here. Let us give a round of applause to the SENSAD delegation and the ministers of youth. We are honored by your presence. Respected peace-loving leaders, I am confident that the goal of peaceful reunification and establishing a world of lasting peace can be realized. If one person hopes for a dream, it can remain a dream, but if we put our hearts together, this vision can be realized. We can realize peaceful reunification and lasting peace around the world. This year in particular marks the 10th anniversary of the ascension of Reverend Sun Myung-moon, the co-founder of the Universal Peace Federation. Although 10 years have passed, we still remember his work in the areas of peace and unification. Looking back on his life, we remember him as a pioneer of peace and reunification. He's devoted his life to peace, to overcoming communism. He met with Premier Gorbachev and also spoke about the evil of communism and the importance of democracy. He met Premier Kim Il-sung to advance the prospects of peaceful reunification on the Korean Peninsula. August 14 will be the 10th Ascension anniversary, and yesterday, Premier Kim Jong-un, in the name of the Joseon Committee, they have sent a congratulatory message and a bouquet of flowers. And the details will be shared on August 14. And centering on Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, we are still continuing the work to promote peace on the Korean Peninsula. Furthermore, Reverend Moon traveled to the United States and spoke about America's rich Christian heritage and the role of America in bringing democracy, but also raising high the banner of freedom around the world. He also worked for the sake of interfaith work, and also he organized peace marches in Israel and Palestine. When we look back on the work of Reverend Moon, he has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in these efforts. He never used a single dollar for his own personal purpose. Reverend Moon has worked tirelessly to bring about the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. He invested his life for the sake of others. And today, he always dreamed of a peaceful Korean Peninsula. And looking back on Reverend Moon, we can remember his work, and Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon continues the legacy of Reverend Moon. Shall we offer a round of applause to Reverend Moon and Dr. Moon? And I would like to take this opportunity to also offer special memorial to Prime Minister Abe. Prime Minister Abe dedicated his life to the development of Japan and Northeast Asia, and also promoted peace on the Korean Peninsula. He dedicated his life to and was beloved in Korea and Japan and various other areas of the world, and we remember him. And also he's remembered by peace-loving citizens around the world. He gave a speech at the Rally of Hope in September last year, and also in February of this year, together with participants from 157 nations, he also sent a letter, and he supported prospects for peace on the Korean Peninsula. And they shared the grand vision for peace, including heads of states from the US, the G20, and 85 other nations. After hearing the sad news of the sudden passing of Prime Minister Abe, UPF expressed our condolences along with peace leaders who respected and loved Prime Minister Abe by visiting memorials prepared in Japanese embassies around the world. And also, regional ILCs, International Leadership Conferences, were held, and various leaders offered their respects to Prime Minister Abe. Today, once again, together with leaders gathered here, I would like to take a short time to remember the memory of Prime Minister Abe. Once again, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, despite many challenges happening around the world, I would like to sincerely thank all the high office holders and leaders of civil society gathered here today. I would like to end my opening remarks here. Thank you very much.
말씀 잘 들었습니다. 항구적 평화 세계 실현과 아마도 평화 통일의 비전을 담은 대회사를 여러분과
We just heard the opening
윤영호
remarks.
공동조직위원장께 다시 한번 큰 박수
Would you
부탁드리겠습니다.
please give him a big round of applause one more time? Thank you.
이번 시간은 평화 운동에 동참하시다가
Yes, at this time, I would like to offer our respects to Prime Minister Abe, who worked in various areas of politics and society. Prime Minister Abe worked for the sake of peace and also promoted peace on the Korean Peninsula. He participated also in the Summit for Peace on the Korean Peninsula. And beginning now, we would like to offer our condolences, and representatives are invited to please come and offer flowers to Prime Minister Abe.
네, 준비가 되셨으면 대표단께서는 단 위로 올라오셔서 헌화해 주시길 부탁드립니다. 평화운동에 동참하시다가 서거하신 아베 신조 전 일본 총리를 추모하겠습니다.
Now we are going to pay respects to the demised Prime Minister Abe of Japan.
다음
Now the
대표단께서는
second delegation,
단비로 올라오셔서
please come up to the stage
헌화를 이어가 주십시오.
and pay respect.
네. 고맙습니다. 이제 추모의 시간을 마치도록
Now
하겠습니다.
we are going to close
아베
the
신조 전
memorial
일본
ceremony.
총리를 추모하는 특별한
We
시간을
just had the
오늘
time
여러분과
to pay
함께
respect to
했습니다.
the Prime Minister Abe
아베
of
신조 전
Japan.
일본 총리께서는 한반도
Prime Minister Abe
통일과 세계
dedicated
평화를
himself
위해
to
펼쳐진
the
희망
unification
전진들과
of
한반도 평화
Korean
서밋
Peninsula.
운동에 동참하시면서
He joined with
한반도
the
통일과
Rally of
평화
Hope,
운동에 앞장서
and
오신
he
분입니다.
took the lead in the movement for peace
자, 이제
on the Korean
축사의
Peninsula and the
순서를
world.
함께 하겠습니다.
Now we are going to
축사는
have
세계 평화 국회의원 연합을
the
대표해서
congratulatory
뉴트
remarks.
깅그리치
Newt
제50대
Gingrich,
미국 하원
the Speaker of the
의장께서
House of the
해주시겠습니다.
Representatives, will
뉴트
give us a
깅그리치 하원
congratulatory
의장은
remarks.
1979년부터 99년까지 20년 동안
He served
미국
as a
공화당
House of
하원
Representative
의원과 하원 의장을
for
역임하시는
25 years
미국 보수를 이끄는
from 1995 to
대표적인
1999.
지도자이십니다. 최근에는 선악평화상위원회 위원으로
Recently, he was working as a member of the Sonak Peace Prize Committee, and he
앞장서고 계십니다.
took the lead
여러분, 큰
in
박수로
promoting
맞아주십시오.
peace in the world. So please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you all very, very much. In all the years I've been involved in public life, I don't know of any time when it has been more important to have this conference and to reach out to leaders around the world. And I must say that I believe that what Mother Moon and Reverend Moon created and the way it has grown and the Universal Peace Federation is one of the real rays of hope for a human race which is moving steadily towards a catastrophe. I had the opportunity last week to talk at length with former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who has a new book out on leadership, referring back to the people he had worked with through his long career. And he said to me, it's very worrisome to watch the world grow more dangerous on almost every front, and reminds him more of the summer of 1914 leading up to World War I than any time in his long life. He's now 99. And I think we have to take that seriously. And one of the reasons that I always cherish a chance to be with the Universal Peace Federation is that I know that this is one organization which is worldwide, which is dedicated to growing the possibility of peace faster than the possibility of disaster. I believe in what you're doing so much that I invited my grandson, Robert Cushman, to come with me because I wanted him to see how people from country after country, from every part of the world, could come together to talk about a better future. Because he's a rising junior in college. I want his generation to have a sense of hope that there can be a better future. And I think about what we just did in putting the flowers up in memory of Prime Minister Abe. The tragedy at 68 years of age of that life being cutting short. The courage he displayed year after year in standing firmly for a Japan that was integrated into the world, that was prepared to do its share, and that was deeply committed to future. I also have to say that I had the opportunity this afternoon to speak with young leaders from 25 different countries in Africa. Now, many years ago, before many of you were born, I actually did a dissertation on Africa. So the idea of being in a room with this many young leaders from that many countries is important. Africa is the continent of the future. Africa is the continent of growth. And one of our commitments has to be that African economic development should primarily benefit Africans and not be exploited as a new economic colonialism. Finally, I have to take a moment to talk a little bit about right here. It's sobering, and there's a huge conflict. And Kim Jong-un, on the one hand, sending flowers and a positive message, and on the other hand, firing a missile yesterday. Now, those are not exactly the same message. And part of the job, I believe, that Reverend Moon and Mother Moon started with was to somehow reach into the heart of the North Korean dictatorship and convince it that its future lies on the path of peace, not the path of war, on the path of hope, not the path of disaster, and that we hang in the balance. And this federation and this meeting and your leadership can make an enormous difference in which way that balance goes. So, oops, sorry for being sloppy, and I apologize to the next speaker, who now has a wet dais. But let me say in a drier and not wetter state, I really hope that each of you will take home the memory of the people sitting around you. I can tell you the times I've been here, when I go home, the meetings haunt me because the people encourage me. I look out here at a sea of faces of every ethnic background, from every continent except Antarctica. And despite the best efforts that Dan Burton and others have made, we have recruited no penguins at all from Antarctica, so we remain only 6 continents. But each of you, think about it. Look around at the people near you. These are the faces of hope. This is the organization of hope. It is a great honor to be part of it, and I hope you will find this an inspiring gathering for the next 2 days. Thank you, and God bless you.
말씀 잘 들었습니다. 멋진 축사를 해주신 깅그리치 하원 의장께 다시 한번 큰 박수
Please
부탁드립니다.
give him a big round of applause one more time. Next speaker is Stephen Harper, the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada, will give us the congratulatory remarks. He served as a representative from 1993 to 1997. He was a leader of Conservative Party since 2004, and he was a Prime Minister since 2006 to 2015. He elevated the international status of Canada in various areas. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, distinguished world leaders and delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm honored to have been part of the Rallies of Hope, the World Summits, and now this Summit and Leadership Conference. And Newt has established a precedent here. Got to get that out of our way. And I'm, as I say, I'm encouraged to see so many delegates, so many people from all parts of the world here to advocate for freedom and peace on the Korean Peninsula, in the Indo-Pacific, and throughout the world. I wish to commend the Universal Peace Federation for continuing to convene such historic conferences. In particular, I want to commend your leadership team, Chairman Walsh, International President Jenkins, Canadian President Famularo, and of course, for her leadership and ongoing vision, your co-founder, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just also give a word for my late previous colleague. We were all, I think, terribly shocked by the murder of my friend, former colleague Shinzo Abe, who just a couple of weeks before, he and I were going to get together. And I think the subjects I'm going to talk about today, deterrence, strength, alliance, peace, I don't think there was any leader in my time who better understood those, and he will be deeply missed by all of us. The situation, as I said before, the situation in Northeast Asia is critically important for the whole world. That's why my country, Canada, joined with 15 other nations to preserve freedom during the Korean War, and why Canada has remained an active part of the Allied command in the South ever since. But this year, the issues of international peace and security have undergone a sea change with the events that began only 12 days after I last spoke here in February. I'm referring, of course, to Vladimir Putin's brutal, unprovoked, and full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, if I may, since then, the top-line story in much of the global media has been about the unity of purpose of the democratic world, including South Korea, in opposition to Putin's invasions. But friends, this obscures what should be the real lesson of this crisis. Unity and strength after a war has begun is important, but it is far more important to show strength in peacetime through deterrence, because that is how war is avoided in the first place. And on that, the West, and in particular, the present U.S. administration, utterly failed. Indeed, while repeatedly predicting that the Russian invasion would happen, the Biden administration promised Ukraine virtually nothing in the way of military support in the lead up to the invasion. In fact, friends, the stark reality is this. Had at any time between 1991 and February 23rd of this year, had NATO been admitted to Ukraine, had NATO admitted Ukraine as a member, as many of us wanted, none of the horrible destruction and loss of life would now be taking place. A similar lack of deterrence is evident much closer to here. For example, the United States, Canada, and its Western allies continue to be ambiguous in their commitment to helping the people of Taiwan preserve their democracy. Such can only encourage the growing belligerence of the People's Republic of China towards its neighbors, not just Taiwan, but also against India in the South China Sea, not to mention its continuing tacit encouragement of its client state, the DPRK, which could not exist without the support of the PRC, and which, under this present administration, has resumed its aggressive actions. In fact, an unprecedented 31 missiles have been tested since January 1st. Our message to the DPRK must be clear. North Korea must stop violating the United Nations Security Council resolution, which bans missile testing. All nuclear tests must stop, and this democratic alliance against this must remain strong. Friends, if the allied nations are strong in will and sincere in desire for peace and development, we will never have a hot war in Asia. But if, as with Ukraine, the United States and its allies send messages of weakness and hesitation, then we fail to deter and we open the door to catastrophic possibilities. It is particularly important that we do not allow China, which has made its aspirations for hegemony in the Indo-Pacific clear. We do not permit it to weaken the alliance or to exacerbate historical tensions between Japan and Korea. Friends, just as Japan was once an enemy of Canada, it has now become one of our closest allies and partners. And so, with South Korea's new president, Yoon Suk-yeol, advocating for strong cooperation with Japan, we can be optimistic that the democratic alliance in this part of the world will deepen. But just as it is important to provide deterrence against the DPRK in its relationship with the Republic of Korea and against the PRC in its relationship with Taiwan, we must also strive to see those nations become constructive members of the global community. We want to see China use its considerable leverage to help North Korea give up its nuclear weapons. And we want to bring North Korea into the community of nations. If North Korea commits to complete, verifiable denuclearization, then I'm sure South Korea, the United States, Canada, and all of our allies will strongly support security assurances, economic development for the North, and a path to its full normalization as a nation. But until North Korea comes back to the table for dialogue and negotiation, the Republic of Korea and its allies have no choice but to take strong measures for deterrence and defense against aggression from the North. Friends, this country, the Republic of Korea, has not, does not, and will not seek war. Because democracies do not. Because ordinary people, when free, want peace and prosperity, not death and destruction. Yes, as I've said before, always have peace in your hearts. Never miss an opportunity to reach out to the North and to pursue it, but also never drop your guard and never fail to deter the DPRK from its most bellicose ambitions. That is how security on the Korean Peninsula will be maintained and how eventually true peace will be achieved. I want to thank you once again for inviting me here. God bless all of you at the Universal Peace Federation for your efforts. Merci beaucoup.
말씀 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you very much.
여러분 스티븐 하퍼스와 함께 다시 한번
Please give him a big round of applause one
고맙습니다.
more time.
이어서 기조 연설을
Now
함께
we are going to
하겠습니다.
hear the keynote
첫 번째
addresses.
기조 연설은
The first
도널드
keynote
트럼프
address will be
제45대
delivered
미국
by the Donald Trump.
대통령께서 해주시겠습니다. 도널드 트럼프 대통령께서는 북한의 비핵화를 통한 한반도 평화를 실현하기 위해 많은
President Donald Trump has devoted efforts to bring peace to the world. He had a summit meeting with President Kim Jong-un of North Korea, and after the summit meeting with Kim Jong-un, he's the first the president of the United States to trot to the North Korean territory. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
It is my very profound honor to address this World Summit and International Leadership Conference and to speak to each of you today on a cause I care very much about, bringing peace, unity, and stability to the Korean Peninsula. I enjoyed speaking with the World Summit last February, very much so, and I want to thank the Universal Peace Federation for hosting this wonderful event. In particular, let me express my gratitude to Dr. Hak Jahan Moon for her incredible efforts on behalf of peace all over the world. She is an amazing and wonderful woman. Her personal story of escaping from North Korea at 5 years old is a true inspiration, and her dream that one day harmony will be restored to the Korean Peninsula is a hope we all share. I have heard about the outstanding work you're doing through Pastor Paula White, and I am confident that your efforts are having a tremendous impact. I also want to thank both Dr. Moon and her late husband, Reverend Moon, for founding the Washington Times and congratulate you on a remarkable 40 years of publication. It is a very, very important and powerful paper and voice. Since the Washington Times founding in 1982, it has made invaluable contributions to the defense of truth, faith, family, and freedom, both here in America and all around the globe. And as we approach the 10th anniversary of Reverend Moon's passing, I want to extend my respects to all who loved him, and there were many. We're also honored to be joined at this summit by representatives from among the 157 nations that have diplomatic relations with North and South Korea. I particularly want to recognize the many distinguished guests from Africa, as well as from Asia and the Americas. It is a pleasure to speak with you all today. As president, it was my great honor to work toward a safer and more prosperous future for the people of North Korea, South Korea, and the entire world. When I took office, the so-called experts told me that the situation on the Korean Peninsula was absolutely hopeless. There was nothing you could do. In fact, when I met President Obama in the Oval Office just days after the election, he told me his greatest fear was a war in North Korea. He said it was going to happen in his opinion. And if nothing had changed, that was exactly where we were heading. For far too long, American presidents and other world leaders had failed to address the growing threats of conflict and nuclear escalation in East Asia. Business as usual would only lead to more danger and ultimately, in my opinion, nuclear war. Instead, my administration launched a bold new diplomatic initiative based on the principle of peace through strength. We rallied the nations of the world to join us in trying to solve this grave challenge, building an unprecedented international coalition for our efforts. And it did what no American president had done before. It was a great success. It was something I was so proud of and continue to be, combining both the toughest ever pressure on the regime with unprecedented outreach and engagement. Everyone said that my approach was going to get us into a war, but no, my approach is what kept us out of war. Working with our allies, we passed several unanimous resolutions through the United Nations Security Council. We brought back our hostages to American shores, and we negotiated with North Korea to return the remains of our fallen heroes to rest in American soil. I was proud to become the first U.S. president to meet with the leader of North Korea, Chairman Kim, in a series of historic summits, and we got along very, very well. I also had the honor of becoming the first U.S. president to set foot in North Korea at the DMZ. For the duration of my term, Chairman Kim kept the pledge to me that he made at our first summit to cease all long-range missile testing, and he did that. The entire world was much more secure as a result. Under our administration, the region was safe and the world was calm because America was strong and respected. Indeed, we were stronger than ever before, not only on North Korea, but also on many other critical issues, including China. I forged an exceptionally productive partnership with President Moon of South Korea. We also got along very well. We wanted the same thing, as well as my friend Prime Minister Abe of Japan, a great man. Prime Minister Abe's recent assassination was a horrific crime and a horrible loss for the entire planet. He was a good friend, a great man, and a once-in-a-generation statesman for his country. He will be missed. I want to express my profound condolences to his family and to all of the people of Japan. With the help of many of you here today, Prime Minister Abe's dream of a free and open Indo-Pacific will live on. Working closely with Prime Minister Abe, under my administration, we restarted the Quad Security Group to respond to China's increasing aggression in the region. And I stood up to China like no president in history, including the fact that tariffs and taxes gave us hundreds of billions of dollars right into the treasury of the United States. Around the globe, we made unprecedented progress toward peace. We had Iran in check. We reached a historic agreement for normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia, something we're very proud of, and we even achieved peace in the Middle East with the historic Abraham Accords. Yet, unfortunately, over the past 2 years, the world has become a vastly different and more dangerous place. We are once again learning the painful lessons of weakness, or being a weak country, or having weak leadership. In the wake of the Afghanistan disaster, the world has been tragically reminded that weakness never leads to peace and tranquility. It only leads to danger and peril. Now China is threatening Taiwan. Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon. And Russia has invaded Ukraine, killing tens of thousands of people, and it will only get worse. And this is something that never, ever would have happened during the Trump administration, and it didn't. As the rest of the world is falling apart, the Korean Peninsula is also now at a very pivotal crossroads, perhaps like never before. The next several years will determine whether we will build on possibilities for peace created under my administration, or whether we will hurtle headlong into new dangers, sadly, and that includes war. Unfortunately, in the first 7 months of 2022, North Korea has launched 31 missile tests, including its longest-ranging missile since 2017. This is a discouraging sign. I continue to believe strongly, as I said many times as president, that denuclearization is not the greatest risk for North Korea. It is the greatest opportunity for North Korea. There is no limit to their nation's potential, but they must denuclearize. They have to do it. They have to do it quickly. They have to do it soon. To achieve that progress, it will be necessary to turn away from the path of aggression and provocation and continue down the road that we started together when I was in office. This summer marks the 4-year anniversary of our historic first summit in Singapore, which was the beginning of a new era in the leadership and relationship between the United States and North Korea. It is my sincere hope that in the future our countries will be able to recapture that incredible spirit of goodwill, optimism, and hope that characterized the first meeting. The United States has no permanent enemies. Many of America's closest friends and allies today, in the past, they were our foes. All we seek is security for our people and a better future for the entire world. We are protecting the world, and that's always been very important to me as your president. There is nothing Americans would love more than to see the possibilities of friendship between our nations come to life. Together, we have it in our power to turn the page on years of division, adversity, and strife, and work toward a stable and lasting peace. All it takes is leaders who have the courage to set aside the conflicts of yesterday and forge a tomorrow of commerce and cooperation. So to all that hear this message, please join me in working and praying for the Korean Peninsula, and that it once again flourishes, and for a world in which we finally have security, prosperity, and the blessings of peace for all the people on earth. Thank you. God bless you. God bless everybody. God bless North Korea and South Korea, the United States, and the entire world. Thank you all very much.
네, 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 도널드 트럼프 제45대 미국 대통령의 첫 번째
keynote address.
다음은 남북 아메리카 정상들께서 연설을
Now we are going to have the keynote address from Dan Quayle, the Vice President, and the 37th President of Brazil will give us the keynote address. Would you please welcome them with a big round of applause?
The Bible tells us that blessed are the peacemakers. So today I commend all of you for coming together at this important event to continue sowing the seeds of peace, knowing that in time we will reap a harvest of peace if we do not give up. And finally, I want to thank Dr. Moon for hosting this important event. and for faithfully continuing the work she began with her late husband. During my 4 years as vice president, at home and abroad, I saw firsthand the truly great nations embrace the principles of freedom, beginning with religious liberty, freedom of speech, democracy, and free enterprise. We all know that strong families, education, equal treatment under the law, and a recognition of the dignity and worth of every human life, born and unborn, is the foundation of true national greatness. These are the values that have united the people of Korea and the United States for nearly 70 years. They're the same values that my father, U.S. Army Lieutenant Ed Pence, and freedom-loving Americans and Koreans just like him fought to defend in the Korean War. And they're the same values I stood for when I served as Vice President of the United States. America was founded on the principle that we are, all of us, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And religious freedom is the first freedom enshrined in the Bill of Rights of the United States Constitution. I know I speak on behalf of millions of Americans when I say how proud we are to stand with the people of the Republic of Korea, Japan, and across this region in defense of religious liberty. We believe that every human being should have the freedom to live, to work, to worship according to the dictates of their conscience. And with one voice, we condemn the repression of Christians and Jews and Muslims and religious minorities taking place in North Korea and China as we gather. We pray for an end to that persecution. And we call on leaders across the world to work together to bring justice for all who are at this very hour being persecuted for their faith.
Distinguished leaders, heads of state, members of parliament, and religious leaders from around the world, thank you for being here, and thank you for the honor of speaking with you today. My friends, I wish to share a few thoughts with you today about coming together for peace. Consider the value of our families. Family is so important. Your mother, your father, your brothers and sisters, extended family, aunts, uncles, friends. Family's everything. That's why I support one of the main themes of UPF, that we are one family under God. How important is faith? It's the most essential value to have in times of challenge and turmoil like today. It's a good thing for us to call upon the Almighty to guide us forward. Through diplomacy and all nations working together, we can bring a peaceful resolution to Korea. The DMZ will be a gateway for Korea's new destiny of peace, freedom, unity, and happiness. And the work of Mother Moon, UPF, and all of you here today will play an essential and decisive role. No matter our race, religion, nationality, or political views, when we come together to serve a greater good, as I think Dr. Moon likes to say, live for the sake of others, even the most critical challenges can be solved.
Eu quero, inicialmente, agradecer à UPF, a Federação para a Paz Universal, pelo convite que me fizeram para a Cúpula Mundial da Paz 2022. Através da Cúpula Mundial, portanto, é possível promover os ideais da interdependência, prosperidade mútua e valores universais compartilhados, que tem sido o slogan da UPF e de sua rede global de embaixadores da paz. Por isso que eu confesso a vocês, num dado momento, ainda como
still holding a public chair, I was in the Republic of Korea, and there I got to know the extraordinary things that are done in South Korea. And that's what made me, by assuming the presidency of the Federative Republic of Brazil, produced a reform of secondary education with the creation of thousands and thousands of full-time teaching vacancies. This was an example that I brought back from my trip to the Republic of Korea. That's why I want once again to thank Dr. Moon for the invitation.
네, 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 이어서 평화 공연의 순서를 이어가겠습니다. 평화.
We are going to have the peace performance. The singer Kim Dong-gyu will sing a song for us. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
And let me play the star. Let me see what spring is like a Jupiter and Mars. And I don't hold my hand. And I don't, darling, kiss me. Feel my heart in song and let me sing forevermore. You are what I long for, I worship and adore, and I know peace be true, and I know I love you. Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like a Jupiter and Mars. And I know, hold my hand. And I know, darling, kiss me. Feel my honey song and let me sing forevermore. You are what I long for, I worship and adore, and I know, please be true, and I know, and I know, and I know, I love you.
네, 안녕하십니까. 바리톤 김동규입니다.
Hello everybody, I am Kim Dong-gyu.
영구적인 세계
We are
평화를
gathering
위해
here
모이신
under
여러
the theme
지도자
of the world
선생님들,
peace
지도자분
and the unified Korea. We are very pleased
저
to
또한
be with you.
여러분의 발걸음에 동참할
I'd like to join in your efforts to
감사합니다.
call for the cause of peace on the
다음으로
Korean
들려줄
Peninsula.
노래는
Next song that I'd like to sing is probably you must know this
감사합니다.
song.
Thank you.
The name of the song is Kesara. Kesara. Thank you.
Paese mio che stai sulla collina, steso come un vecchio addormentato, la noia, l'abbandono, niente son tua malattia. Paese mio, ti lascio io, vado via. Che sarà, che sarà, che sarà? Che sarà della mia vita, chi lo sa? So far tutto, forse niente, da domani si vedrà. Che sarà, sarà quel che sarà. Gli amici miei sono quasi tutti via, gli altri partiranno dopo me. Perché stavo bene in loro compagnia, ma tutto passa e tutto se ne va. Che sarà, che sarà, che sarà, che sarà della mia vita, chi lo bacio sulla bocca, che fu il fonte del primo amore. Ti do l'appuntamento come quando, non lo so, ma so soltanto che ritornerò. Che sarà, che sarà, che sarà, che sarà della mia vita, chi lo sa. Soprattutto forse niente, da domani si vedrà. Che sarà, sarà quel che sarà. Che sarà, che sarà, che sarà della mia vita, chi lo sa. Come porto la chitarra se la notte piangerò, una legna di paese suonerò. Oh! Che sarà, che sarà, che sarà, che sarà della mia vita, chi lo sa. Soprattutto forse niente, da domani si vedrà. Che sarà, sarà quel che sarà. Che sarà, sarà quel che sarà.
잘 들었습니다.
Thank you for the beautiful song.
멋진 축하 무대를 여러분과 함께
We
했습니다.
really enjoyed the song.
이제 두 번째
Now
기조
the
연설입니다.
next keynote address on behalf of Africa will be delivered by the chairman, the Censor, Brady Raffini. He served as Prime Minister of Niger, and he held the fourth African summit in cooperation with ECOWAS and West African Economic Community. And he also conducted the government-led True Family Blessing ceremony. He is currently serving as chairman of the Censor. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
Hein. Je ferai la même chose pour Macky Sall. Hein.
Assalamu alaikum. Je ne sais pas si je serai
I don't know if you'll be able to hear me after the great speeches that we've heard through this video conference, but I will try.
Mesdames et messieurs les ambassadeurs de la paix.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of Ambassadors for Peace, I consider all of us in this room, whatever our status, we're all ambassadors for peace. So I want to speak to all of you in that quality and in that status with the hope. I speak to this amazing assembly. It's a great pleasure that I take the floor on the occasion of this high-level conference whose objective is to address the current challenges of a world in perpetual change. Let me salute, before anything else, and present to the people of Korea and its leaders all my sympathy and condolences after the loss of human lives that happened after the floods, the recent floods. And allow me also to thank and to salute the President of the Republic of Korea and the government who agreed to host this Leadership Summit conference, thus allowing the values of humanity, justice, tolerance, and solidarity that are the foundation of the Universal Peace Federation to assert themselves once again. Allow me also to pay tribute to Reverend Sun Myung Moon, the founder of the Universal Peace Federation, for his vision that led to the creation of this platform, which today represents a powerful instrument in the service of world peace and sustainable development. Finally, I would like to thank the Mother of Peace, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, and the members of the organizing committee for the invitation and the fraternal welcome and heartfelt welcome we have received on Korean soil. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the 2022 edition of this International Leadership Conference, placed under the theme Contemporary Challenges to World Order, the Quest for Peace, Security, and Sustainable Development. This conference comes at a time when the world is facing major challenges such as terrorism, climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, clandestine migration, etc. These challenges transcend continents, and we are all aware of the need to address them. This synergy of action between all the actors of the multilateral system is imperative to reverse the current trend. To help create this synergy, the Universal Peace Federation constitutes an appropriate framework as a platform for multi-actor dialogue. In this respect, it has the vocation to serve as an accelerator of synergies to finally become, in the words of the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the cornerstone for building lasting peace in the world. In this perspective, the community of Sahel-Saharan states, through all its member states, which I represent here, 25 member states, intends to play its part in contributing to the achievement of this common ideal. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the community of Sahel-Saharan states was established. It's over 650 million people, covering an area of approximately 14 million square kilometers, which corresponds to more than half of the African continent. The CENSAD is one of the 8 regional economic communities and make up the African Union. Its action is in line with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union's Agenda 2063. The member countries of CENSAD have a predominantly young population. It's 70%. This is why our community organization is actively translating into action the recommendations of the Sustainable Development Goals, inviting partners to reaffirm their support for the promotion of youth welfare. It also takes into account we want to invest priority for the youth, who are the primary vectors for peace. And we will thus bring a structural answer to the temptations that our youth is exposed to. For example, going into groups, non-static groups, criminality, transnational migration, irregular migration, and so on and so forth. Investment in youth is an investment in the long term, an investment in the future, and for peace, and for solidarity, and for sustainable development of the states. So allow me a short digression. I'd like to say there's an ancestral principle that teaches us that the one who wants peace has to prepare the war. So I can see I'm still waiting for our scientists have succeeded in countering this principle, because they have not been able to invent a peace without war. We need a peace without war. We need peace without weapons. All the states consider that in order to ensure their sovereignty, they need strong armies, sophisticated weapons to destroy the enemy. But yesterday, Imam Mansour said, we made a mistake about the enemy. Men are not the enemies of men, and he's right. And I hope that our scientists and researchers will not forget this domain of peace in their investigations in order to reach and invent a peace without war, a peace without weapons. I was talking about the youth because I consider if we want a sustainable and true peace, it has to be built from youth, from childhood on. And that's why for our states to educate our youth so they can really take their destiny upon their shoulders is imperative. And I'd like to recall that the education of youth was the subject of a resolution at the end of the summit organized by the Universal Peace Federation in collaboration with the government of Niger in 2019 in Niamey. The youth also needs us to create opportunities for their employability, to bring out their talent, creative genius, and innovative capacities. This is the price of peace. Ladies and gentlemen, investing in the development of our youth also means, without any doubt today, investing in the climate, because sustainable development in the Sahel-Saharan region is closely linked to climate change issues. In our countries, climate change is combined with desertification, the degradation of livelihoods due to the depletion of natural resources, migration, violent extremism, and various forms of trafficking. Faithful to these objectives of transformation and development of Africa, the community of Sahel-Saharan states intends to implement an important program entitled a youth program of the Great Green Wall, which aims at strengthening the socio-economic and environmental added value of the Great Green Wall through the mobilization of youth. Indeed, the Great Green Wall, many of you know it, is an initiative born from the will of the heads of state and government of 11 African countries to undertake together concerted actions to combat desertification and sustainable land management, and to fight against poverty, and have the countries have a sustainable development path. Vast and very ambitious, but realistic and achievable, the program we're proposing aims to help accelerate the implementation of the Great Green Wall while amplifying its environmental, social, and economic benefits for our populations. To this end, ladies and gentlemen, I call for a strong mobilization and multifaceted support from all partners, bi and multilateral, public and private, to help us for the effective implementation of this important program, with a view to increasing the resilience of the populations of the Sahel-Saharan region. As you know, it's evolving in a very difficult context. It will be a contribution for the restoration of peace in this region and also in the rest of the world, because all the efforts that we're investing to maintain peace in that region will not benefit only Sahel, it will be benefiting the whole world, because after Sahel, this insecurity persists. It will go to the whole world, which will be really dramatic. To conclude, I would like to express the hope that this summit can serve as a framework for the implementation of a new alliance for peace and a partnership for a better, more united, and more sustainable future for all. In this, we need to revitalize the partnership for sustainable development, for peace, for a fight against climate change, against conflicts, to save the world and humanity and its youth around a new vision centered on the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. Facing this global crisis, there is the need for a global solution because the destiny of our continents are intermingled. And finally, let me thank again Dr. Hak Jahan Moon for her far-sighted vision and boundless love, which have made this leadership summit and conference possible. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you for the keynote address. Would you please give him a big round of applause one more time? Now the current and the former prime ministers of Africa will give us the keynote address, including Carlos, the president of Carlton Bank. Would you please welcome them with a big round of applause?
I'm delighted to join you again on the occasion of the summit of the Universal Peace Federation. I thank you once again, Honorable Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, and all the members of your federation for the time and considerable efforts that you continue to devote to the safeguarding of our common humanity. In the dark hours of the war may have divided the Korean people, I want to make the optimistic bet that a courage and legendary genius, we can overcome the mistrust inherited from old fears and return to the garden of trust and dialogue to realize his desire for peace. This is my fervent wish with you for the Korean Peninsula.
Your Excellencies and distinguished participants, I'm delighted to join you at this summit. The Korean Peninsula has been a flashpoint of conflict that has lingered for many decades, and therefore deserving the attention of world leaders for a peaceful resolution. Peace on the Korean Peninsula has far-reaching implications to the region, if not to the world at large. The Nigerian government encourages and supports every effort to promote understanding and a commitment to peace among the governments and people of both Koreas. We shall continue to pioneer and collaborate with all such efforts in resolving conflicts and bringing lasting peace and security to the West African sub-region. We are open to continuous partnerships with both local and international organizations, such as the Universal Peace Federation, to achieve lasting peace in the world.
Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Korea has been a divided nation since the beginning of the Korean War many years ago. My own country, Liberia, and several other countries in the West African region have known the suffering, the destruction, and the devastation caused by war and division. And that is why we cherish peace and pray that all peoples of the world will be able to live peacefully together and enjoy the promise and prosperity of peace. It is my fervent hope and prayer that soon there will be a reunification of Korea. I now salute the Universal Peace Federation, which is a leading force for peace in today's world. We are living through challenging times. If we work together, we can make a difference, and we can achieve the great hope for peace that the people of the world long for and deserve.
Excelências, é com imenso prazer que me dirijo a esta ilustre plateia para partilhar ideias sobre esta tão importante temática, do ponto de vista de São Tomé e Príncipe, um pequeno estado insular que, pela graça de Deus, tem sido um oásis de paz no continente africano. A convivência pacífica entre os povos e entre pessoas, individualmente consideradas, é um bem universal, pois sabemos, pelos ensinamentos da história, que a paz é uma condição crítica, essencial, para que o homem e a sociedade se realizem e desenvolvam plenamente. Desejo, por isso, em nome do povo de São Tomé e Príncipe, e no meu próprio, felicitar a senhora doutora Hak Jan Han-moon pelo espírito de missão que tem marcado de forma inapagável o seu empenho, o seu grito audível em todas as latitudes pela paz universal e pela pacificação e unificação dos seus irmãos das duas Coreias. Do nosso lado, o meu país, São Tomé e Príncipe, continuará a apoiar, no seio da ONU, o processo intercoreano de diálogo, de reconciliação e de reunificação, dando assim a sua contribuição para a paz e segurança, não apenas na Península Coreana, mas também nesta região do continente asiático e no mundo inteiro.
Thank you for the keynote address. That was the keynote address from the Prime Ministers and leaders of Africa. Now we're going to invite the Hun Sen, the Prime Minister of Cambodia. He served as the Prime Minister and he took the lead in developing the economy. He served as a leader, as chairman of the ASEAN. He was awarded the Founder's Special Prize, and he has been serving as the chairman of the organizing committee of the Korean Peninsula World Peace Summit. Prime Minister Sok Sipana, on behalf of Prime Minister, will convey his message. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
First of all, I'd like to extend my greetings to all the delegates. And I must say that I'm quite honored and privileged to have the opportunity to represent my Prime Minister, Samdech Agek Mahasenapadej Daeju Hun Sen, to read his congratulatory message to this august audience. But before I do that, I like, on behalf of the Cambodian government and the people of Cambodia, extend our deepest condolence to the people of Japan and the government of Japan for the sad loss of former Prime Minister Abe. My Prime Minister have asked me to convey his message, his regret that he could not attend this August gathering, mainly because of his preoccupation to handle the ASEAN summit, which was quite a busy time for Cambodia as the chair of the ASEAN. So allow me now to read his message, congratulatory message of Samdech Akek Mahasana Padej Hun Sen, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Cambodia. I wish to congratulate the Universal Peace Federation on its remarkable achievement in promoting a global culture of peace and tolerance under the committed, visionary, and wise leadership of Dr. Yoon Yong-ho, led and inspired by the wisdom of UPF co-founder Honorable Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon and the late Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon. In the context of increasing fluidity and volatility in international politics and security, a global peace movement such as the UPF is extremely essential. I, therefore, commend and encourage UPF members to unswervingly pursue their peace mission. The World Summit in February 2022 was a significant milestone in our collective multilateral effort to promote peace on the Korean Peninsula and in the world. I was honored to co-chair the summit with former UN Secretary General His Excellency Ban Ki-moon and UPF co-founder Honorable Dr. Ja Han Moon. Our next step is to work together to effectively implement the Seoul Resolution 2022. Taking this opportunity, I call upon distinguished delegates to work together to realize the Seoul Resolution 2022, including the implementation of the two-state toward one nation, one peninsula, one people, one culture initiative, the development of Universal Peace Charter, and the formation of a practical roadmap toward the realization of the Asia-Pacific Union. In addition to the M4P2 in principle, which refer to mutual respect, mutual understanding, mutual assistance, and mutual interest for peace and prosperity, I would suggest the M4P2 in practice, which is the promotion of multilateralism, multi-sectoral collaboration, multi-layered partnership building, and multi-faith in practicality and proactivity. Taking this opportunity, I would like to express my deep respect and gratitude to the late Reverend Dr. Sun Myung Moon for having devoted his entire life and resource to uniting the world for peace and prosperity. I wish to delegate good health and success in all your endeavor to secure peace for the world. Sincerely, Hun Sen.
네, 감사합니다. 훈센 수상의 메시지를 수옥시파나 훈센 수상 대행자께서 대독해 주셨습니다. 이제 네 번째 기조 연설이 이어지겠습니다. 유럽을 대표해서 호세 마누엘 바로소 제7대 유럽연합 집행위원장께서 해주시겠습니다. 호세 마누엘 바로소 위원장께서는
The chairman, Jose Manuel Barroso, will give us his keynote address. He served as the Prime Minister of Portugal from 2002 to 2004, and he also served as a chairman of the European Union Committee from 2004 to 2014. And he also served as a chairman of the fifth SONAC Peace Prize Committee. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
I'm delighted to participate in this UPF event and to address the topic of Africa's potential to contribute to the world. Africa is a great continent, 54 countries, 1.4 billion people, the most diverse continent from a genetic point of view. Median age, 20 years. By the end of this century, we estimate 4 billion people in Africa, the most dynamic demographics on this planet. This is certainly a challenge in terms of the growth necessary to generate employment for all these people, but it's a great asset from an economic point of view because Africa will be one of the biggest markets in the world, but also from a pool of talent point of view, because all these new generations, if there is proper education and training, will be able to give a great contribution to the future of their countries, to Africa as a whole, and indeed to the world. I believe I can say I know Africa relatively well. I'm an European, I'm not African, but I've been very much involved in African affairs since the 80s, when I was a young state secretary for foreign affairs and also minister for development cooperation. I visited 35 countries in Africa. I was especially involved with the Lusophone countries, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, São Tomé e Príncipe, but also with other countries in Africa. In Angola, I was the official mediator that brought together for the first time the parties in conflict, and I was leading the process that will culminate with the democratic elections, the first free and fair elections in Angola, as such recognized by the United Nations. I was also supporting the peace process in Mozambique and very much close to the process of the end of apartheid and the transition to multiracial democracy in South Africa. I will never forget the first time I met Nelson Mandela, some months just after he left prison, when I met him in Windhoek, the day of the independence of Namibia. And one thing I understood about Africa is the great qualities of its people. I really admire the resilience, the creativity, the ingenuity of the African people, their capacity to work under sometimes extremely difficult circumstances, the spirit of sacrifice, but also the joy of life, the humor, and that capacity to overcome great obstacles. So we are used to listen a lot about the great natural resources of Africa, but the most important natural resource is the human people Africa has. But let's be honest, problems remain, and they are serious, namely the problem of inequity when we compare Africa with the rest of the world. The reality is that in terms of wealth, of social, economic, and cultural development, Africa remains behind the most developed parts of the world. One example I know well because as chairman of Gavi and also leader of COVAX, I've been following it very closely, is the issue of vaccine inequity. In COVAX, we were able to provide great assistance to Africa. Of the 860 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines received by African countries, 546, more or less 63% of total, have been provided by COVAX. While COVAX has delivered globally around 1.6 billion COVID-19 vaccines, 35% of those were delivered to Africa. But in reality, this was not enough to solve the problem of inequity. Because of export restrictions and also excessive stockpiling of vaccines by some countries, the reality is that Africa received less vaccines and later. This is one example of what we need to correct when it comes to Africa. We need to transfer more know-how. We need to support local production in Africa. We need more investment in Africa. Of course, when we speak about Africa, we cannot ignore what's going on in the global context. And that global context is challenging, dangerous. We are living, I will not say in the global order, but global disorder. And so when we see this decoupling, we have to ask ourselves, what can be the contribution of Africa? In the past, during the Cold War, we saw the attempts of the most important powers then to try to have some clients among the African states. So Africa was more reactive than proactive. The question now is to know if Africa will be able to come with its own solutions, first of all, to achieve its unity, and instead of being in the receiving end of this global order or global disorder to be able to contribute also to the proposals for a more just world. I think the current situation creates more incentives and conditions for these developments. Because in this fragmented world, we are seeing that globalization is becoming increasingly regionalization. Regionalization is the new name of globalization. So for instance, while Europe is making some steps for more integration, and other parts of the world as well, it seems that it's now the time for Africa to assume its unity and also come and give those contributions. Because the reality is that in spite of those very deep political differences we are seeing today in the world, we still need it open at least to solve some global problems, like for instance, climate change, or food security, or the issue of public health. We need this work for the common good. And Africa can also give a contribution if it stands united and active to avoid the self-fulfilling prophecy of the clash of civilizations. So we need Africa for a global order, or at least to avoid such a global disorder. Let me conclude with a warm word of appreciation to EPF and its founders, especially now that EPF is commemorating the 10-year anniversary of the passing of its co-founder, Reverend Dr. Moon. I believe it's appropriate to say how grateful we should be to EPF for its remarkable contribution to global dialogue, especially to dialogue for the reunification of Korea, such an important issue for global peace. I believe the Seoul Declaration signed last February in Korea in the World Summit was and remains a very important contribution for this goal. I thank you all for your kind attention.
고맙습니다. 바로소 위원장께서 말씀을 해주셨습니다. 이어서 유럽 전현직 정상들께서 연설해 주시겠습니다. 로마노 프로디 제10대 유럽연합 집행위원장, 도미닉 드 빌팽 제167.
We're going to hear the keynote address from the chairman of the European Union, Romano Prodi, and the Prime Minister of France, Dominique Villepin, and the former Prime Minister of Spain, José María Aznar, and the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Albin, and the last Prime Minister, the President of Albania, Alit Meta. Would you please welcome them with a big round of applause?
Happy to be with you in the summit of Universal Peace Federation. I want to start my conversation with you giving a deep, deep, deep thank to the founder of UPF, Dr. Hakya Han Moon. I've been president of the European Commission, and the effort to unify Europe is not ended. You know, we are half of our way. But the effort to unify Europe was not easy. It's not easy. You are one country with one language, with one common history. We are now 27 countries with 22 languages. And you know, every day there is some sort of differentiation, of a split. But when you have a continuous dialogue, you understand that time is working in your favor. You know, cooperation is like an infection, like COVID-19 that is spreading around, and if we cooperate, we are spreading virtue around.
Excellencies and dear friends, our world is facing huge uncertainties and tensions because we are going through a massive transition, aggravated by the impact of the world pandemic. We face a geopolitical transition with the shift of global power from the West to the East, as shown by the historical rise of China. Never before has the risk of war been higher than today. We should not forget the threat of nuclear proliferation becoming the major danger to international stability, as shown by the Iranian and North Korean crisis. Following many estimates, North Korea could have in between 20 and 45 warheads, or even more. We are in a defining moment. In order to have a fruitful dialogue, the strategy should be based on political, cultural, and social interactions responding to the aspirations of both people and regimes. First, peace depends on the willingness for change. Second, peace depends on the willingness for cultural dialogue. Peace building makes it crucial to foster mutual understanding. That's why art, education, universities, foundations, churches, NGOs are necessary in facilitating cross-border exchanges. Third, peace also depends on the willingness for economic cooperation. In this regard, companies, banks, and entrepreneurs have a major role to play in ensuring prosperity and development. With determination, pragmatism, and of course, imagination, we might be able to take the lessons of the past and face the challenges of today's world, setting an example for the new generations. We have an opportunity today. We should seize it.
Good afternoon. In this context of increasing geopolitical tensions in international relations, the work of an institution such as Universal Peace Federation and its efforts to build peace and dialogue among nations, especially to contribute to a dialogue on peace on the Korean Peninsula, is more necessary than ever. We all agree that peace of the Korean Peninsula is of a great importance. We know that the situation on the Korean Peninsula is made complicated by geopolitical competition among superpowers, not only during the 20th century's Cold War, but even today. We must work toward building trust, mutual respect, reconciliation, and cooperation. My personal experience as a former Prime Minister of Spain has taught me that all instruments we can use to achieve dialogue and peace must be used. Peace can be pursued not only through traditional track one diplomacy, but also through a wide range of back channels approaches to peace that may involve civil society, trade and commerce, humanitarian relief, interfaith, dialogue, cultural exchange, tourism, and so on. Cooperation between civil societies is one of the keys to gaining popular support for future negotiations. And I wish everyone the best of luck and fruitful work. Thank you for your attention. All the best and goodbye.
Very honored dignitaries, spiritual leaders, parliamentarians, and government representatives. Although divided, Koreans have known peace for nearly 70 years. Yet, peace is not merely the absence of war or of visible conflict, but the presence of true justice. A just peace with human and civil rights, with freedom of media and freedom of speech, and with an independent judiciary, but also with economic rights and a welfare state that works for everyone, regardless of nationality, religion, or gender. Despite the cruelty and suffering in the world, what remains true throughout history is that the longing for freedom stirs in every human heart. We must seek lasting peace in the Korean Peninsula, but also in the Balkan Peninsula. Reverend Moon teaches us that peace flourishes where there is justice, and justice requires repentance, which must be accompanied by restitution. We must never forget these lessons, for they are lessons of history.
Honorable Excellencies, Heads of State, peace on the Korean Peninsula is of great importance. A breakthrough of peace on the Korean Peninsula would reflect globally. History and the tragic conflicts of the past have taught us the importance of peace and also how vigilant we must be to preserve it. The United Nations was created as a mechanism for maintaining peace and security in the world, to build more trust between nations, to guarantee equality between the nations and create mutual respect regardless of their strength and size. Peace always remains fragile and threatened. Therefore, it never should be taken for granted, but serious work and efforts must be made to protect it. Where there is democracy, there is peace. Nations of the world need democratic government and not regimes, and each country must begin by promoting peace, democracy, and respect for human rights at home. Furthermore, education and youth are the foundation of all societies and the perspective of the future, while on the other hand, religious actors are a great force for social justice and peace. Religious communities and leaders of religious institutions can mediate in conflict situations and unite peoples and nations. Albania remains a model of peace and harmony between religious communities. Therefore, governments and the civil society must come together and speak the language of peace and act on it.
네, 유럽 전현직 정상들께서 귀한 말씀을
addressed by the former and current leaders of the European countries. Now we are going to have the peace agreement ceremony.
이브라임 나타투 니제르 청년 교육부 장관께서 나오셔서
The Minister of Youth Education will explain the peace, the purpose of peace agreement ceremony. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
Assalamu alaikum. Excellences, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, ici présents,
Excellencies, people who follow us through visual conference, President, Speakers of the House, and respected Mother of Peace, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, members of parliament, distinguished religious leaders, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to represent my president of Niger, Mr. Mohamed Bazoum, for this important event who gathered us today. Today, we will sign the historical protocol between Dr. Yun Young-ho, representing UPF, and His Excellency Brigitte Raffini, Secretary Executive of SENSAD, in the presence of Ministers of Youth of SENSAD. Before we start the ceremony, I want to read a note from President Mohamed Bazoum. I quote, Mr. Director General, with great pleasure I write to you to express my gratitude. Following your correspondence of 6 June 2022, I take this opportunity to convey my best regards to Dr. Haja Han-Moon, the Mother of Peace, co-founder of the Universal Peace Federation, and to you. I also thank you for the commitment made at our meeting on the 20th of May 2022 on several issues, including the education of the girl child. We are convinced that the education of young girls is an essential condition for the development of a people and the prosperity of a nation. And that is why the President of the Republic's program of the Renaissance Act 3 makes it a priority. Also, we have no problem with your proposal to have the Minister of National Education and the Minister of Youth and Sports participate in a special meeting in Seoul, Korea, from the 11th to 15th August 2020, as part of the exchanges relating to the implementation of the commitments made in Niamey. While thanking the Mother of Peace, Dr. Haja Han-Moon, for her love for world peace, please accept, Mr. Director General, the expression of my distinguished greetings. So this was from His Excellency Mr. Mohamed Bazoum, the current President of Niger, and it was read by the Minister of Youth of his country.
Thank you very much. You have heard the purpose of this special peace signing ceremony. At this time, I would like to invite all the ministers of youth to please come on the stage and stand behind Dr. Yoon Young-ho and His Excellency Brigadier Rafini. Dr. Yoon Young-ho, His Excellency Brigadier Rafini, will do the signing, and all the ministers of youth will stand behind both leaders. All ministers of youth, please come on stage. Dr. Yoon and Excellency Brigadier Rafini will come onto the stage. All ministers of youth, please come on the stage. All ministers of youth, please come on stage. Ministers of youth, please, can you come on stage? If you are ready, we are going to sign. All the ministers of youth and of education, please go on stage, please. And once the signature has been made, please exchange the different papers. And the signature has been made, and now we are going to have a commemorative group photo, and together with all the ministers of youth from Africa, please go on stage. Please come and take a picture together. All ministers of youth, please go on stage. Thank you. This was a historic peace signing ceremony. This is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Ministers of youth, you're encouraged to go on stage, please. They're all shaking hands. Thank you very much. And we'll take another photo together with the ministers of education. So now this will conclude the peace signing ceremony. Let's give another round of applause, please.
Thank you very much.
무대에서는 이 순간을 기념하는 기념 촬영이 아직 진행 중입니다.
The photo session is still in progress.
조금 전 평화 협약식을
We just had completed the peace agreement ceremony.
사인해 주신
And those who signed the peace agreement.
All ministers of education and youth, please go on stage.
조금 전에 평화 협약식의 취지에 대한 설명을 들으셨고요. 사인을 했고 협약식을 마치고 기념 촬영까지 함께했습니다. 고맙습니다. 자리로 모시겠습니다. 자, 이제 이 시간을 축하하는 평화.
Now we are going to have the peace performance celebrating this ceremony. Now we are going to invite the Papera Duo Duet. Papera Duo Duet has taken the lead in the popularizing pop and classic crossover. He's expanding the new area for K-Papera. Would you please welcome them with a big round of applause? Papera Duo Duetto.
Pensato a te, ho aperto gli occhi per guardare intorno a me e intorno a me girava il mondo come sempre.
Gira il mondo, gira nello spazio senza fine, con gli amori appena nati, con gli amori già finiti, con la gioia e con l'onore della gente come me.
Un mondo, soltanto adesso io ti guardo, nel tuo silenzio io mi perdo e sono niente accanto a te. Pensato a te, ho aperto gli occhi per guardare intorno a me e intorno a me girava il mondo come sempre.
Gira il mondo, gira nello spazio senza fine, con gli amori appena nati, con gli amori già finiti, con la gioia e con l'onore della gente come me.
Un mondo, soltanto adesso io ti guardo, nel tuo silenzio io mi perdo e sono niente accanto a te. 네. 감사합니다. 저희는 듀에이터입니다. 반갑습니다.
We are the duet. Nice to meet you.
먼저 이렇게 귀한 자리에 이렇게 노래할 수 있어서
We're very
영광이고요.
honored to sing at this
훌륭하신 분들,
auspicious occasion.
세계의 평화와
I'm very happy to see all of you
입장 주시는 분들
participating
앞에서
in the cause
인사드릴 수 있어서
of freedom
영광입니다.
and peace.
먼저 저희의 소개를
Let us
해드리자면
introduce
여기는
ourselves.
유슬기고요. 전 백인태입니다.
I am 백인태.
이런 자리에서 저희가 노래를 해도 되나 싶을
And
정도로
유슬기.
정말
We are
영광스럽다는
very
말
honored
다시 한번
to
드리고 싶습니다.
be with you today.
신통일한국과 신통일 세계를 위한 초석이 될 수 있는 의미를 담은 더 월드라는 뜻을
We'd like to
가진
sing a
노래
song
들려드렸고요. 다음은
with the meaning of the
평화와
world.
통일에는 가장 중요한 게 사랑이 아닐까 싶어서
I think the
위대한
love is
사랑이라는
essential
뜻의
for the
그란데
peace.
아모레
So I'd
불러드리겠습니다.
like to sing the song
감사합니다.
Grande Amore. Thank you.
Chiudo gli occhi e penso a lei, il profumo dolce della pelle sua e una voce dentro che mi sta portando dove nasce il sole.
Sole sono le parole, ma se vanno scritte tutto può cambiare. Senza più timore te lo voglio urlare, questo grande amore, amore, solo amore, è quello che sento.
Dimmi perché quando penso solo a te.
Dimmi perché quando vedo solo te. Dimmi perché quando credo solo in te. Grande amore. Dimmi che non mi lascerai mai. Dimmi chi sei. Respiro dei giorni miei d'amore. Dimmi che sai che solo me sceglierai. Ora lo sai, tu sei il mio unico grande amore.
Dimmi perché quando penso solo a te.
Dimmi perché quando amo solo te. Dimmi perché quando vivo solo in te. Grande amore. Dimmi che vai, che non mi lascerai mai. Dimmi chi sei. Respiro nei giorni miei d'amore. Dimmi che sai, che non mi sbaglierai mai. Dimmi chi sei, che sei l'unico grande amore. Che sei l'unico grande amore.
Thank you so much. 네, 듀엣했습니다.
멋진 무대 고맙습니다. 듀엣의 평화 공연 함께 보셨습니다. 자, 이어서 기조 연설이 이어지겠습니다. 세계
keynote
평화
addresses.
정상연합을 대표해서 마이크 폼페이오 제70대 미국 국무장관께서
The Secretary of State,
마이크
Mike
폼페이오
Pompeo,
장관께서는
the 7th Secretary of State,
2011부터
will give us the
17년까지 연방
keynote
하원
address.
의원을
He served as the
맡았고,
representative from
트럼프 대통령
2011 to
퇴임 이후
2017.
2018년 4월
And
국무장관으로
since the Trump
임명돼
administration,
한반도
he
평화
was
실현을 위해
appointed as
세차례
the
진행됐던
Secretary of
트럼프
State
대통령과 김정은
in
북한
April
국무위원장의
2018.
북미 정상회담
And he was
성사에 깊이
instrumental
관여하면서
in
실무
holding
책임을
the summit talks
맡았습니다.
between
특별히
North Korea,
한국전
Kim
총재님의
Jong-un,
신통일 한국
and
비전을
President
공감하고
Trump. And he gave us on many occasions keynote address for the conferences, Valley of Hope and Think Tank 2022 Forum. He is again with us. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
Well, thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be back with you. The last time I was here in February, those of you who were here, remember I scootered up on a little ramp here. It was very dangerous. You should know that my foot has healed in those last 4 months. The Lord is with us. Yes, God is good. God is very good, but the last 4 months, that is the only thing that is less fractured in the world. We've watched in the days that followed Vladimir Putin commits acts of aggression. We've watched the COVID virus continue to run rampant around the world. We saw an assassination of an amazing Asian leader and a dear friend of mine. We've watched the Chinese Communist Party threaten the democratic, peace-loving people of Taiwan in ways they have not done previously. No, these last 4 months have been difficult. And the people who have come here today, the people who join in the desire for peace, well, that makes our work just a little bit more important, a little bit harder, and we must renew our commitment to that. I, of course, want to thank Dr. Moon for creating this opportunity for us all to come together around the Universal Peace Federation. I want to thank the good people from the Washington Times who have delivered to the United States messages that they often don't find in other places, indeed delivered messages to the world that the world needs to hear. Dr. Rafini, or Prime Minister Rafini, it was great to see you. Thank you for bringing these great leaders from all across Africa to be with us here to pray and to work so diligently to deliver peace for every human being, wherever they find themselves. You know, it's great to be the former Secretary of State because you can speak more freely. You can speak about things that are on your heart and that you know matters, and I thought today I'd talk about 3 things. I want to talk about truth, I want to talk about hope, and I want to talk about what it means for this group to be a federation. The truth is, when we talk about peace, sometimes think that's weakness, right? You talk about peace and you think about people who shake hands and aren't willing to use power and to deliver good outcomes for the people that they are tasked to lead and to represent. The administration that I worked in, you heard President Trump, you heard Vice President Pence, we desperately wanted peace. We wanted peace everywhere, but we were prepared to do the hard work to make that more likely. It need not be the case that those who speak the truth and those who want peace are victims, are those who fall prey to those who speak about peace, but who truly have an objective that is deeply different. Let me give you 5 examples from my time as Secretary of State. I sat across from Chinese counterparts, Wang Zhishe and Wang Yi. They spoke about peace, but rattled sabers. They rattled sabers against the Mongolian people. They imprisoned 1 million Uyghurs in the western part of China. They killed Indians at the border in the Himalayas. They created risk with every one of their border neighbors. They moved against the Vietnamese who were simply trying to use energy that was in their own economic zone. No, they spoke about peace, but they delivered the risk of war, and they made freedom less likely. I met with the Taliban leaders in Afghanistan. I signed an agreement that became known as the Doha Agreement. It was a set of commitments to try and make that part of the world, the place that had been so fraught, where so many Americans and so many people from your nations had lost their lives over the last 2 decades. No, they spoke about peace, but during my time and subsequently, they did not deliver on that. The people of Afghanistan are less free. The women of Afghanistan have rights now today that are only a fraction of what they were just 18 short months ago. I'd say the same thing here on this peninsula. I traveled my first trip to Pyongyang. I left on Good Friday, 2018, to travel to Pyongyang on what was then a clandestine mission to meet with Chairman Kim. We were prepared, we had done all the hard work, but the most important thing that I did as I walked into the room that day was to pray. It was, after all, Good Friday, the darkest day in the Christian tradition. I left North Korea and returned home on Easter Sunday, which brings me to hope, which brings me to faith and to commitment. And the central thesis with which we were meeting with Chairman Kim, it was delivered to follow on what Dr. Moon and Reverend Young Moon had talked about for so long. Is there a way for this one people to join together and make life better for the people of the entire peninsula? I was mindful and am ever mindful that when you meet with Chairman Kim and you are seeking peace, there are 25 million people in North Korea that are rooting for you, even if the person who you're sitting across from may not be. I was always mindful, too, when I would meet with my counterparts from the Chinese Communist Party, that there were 1.2 billion Chinese people that were rooting for better lives, for more freedom, and for peace. And so there is hope. It remains. That hope is real, and it will ultimately deliver good outcomes. But it has to be combined with the hard work that goes alongside us and the preparedness to demonstrate resolve and use power to make sure that that peace can actually be delivered. You know, back to truth for a second. Sometimes it gets muddy in the diplomatic world, or as we move around the world, we sometimes forget that when there is conflict, the parties are seldom equally responsible for that conflict. We should be fearless in calling out the aggressors. Does anyone think for 1 minute that had Vladimir Putin not moved into Ukraine, that the Ukrainians would have threatened a single Russian in Moscow? Does anybody think for a single minute if Chinese warships today engaging in exercises all around the freedom-loving people of Taiwan, if those ships went back to port, does one think for a moment that Taiwan threatens a single Chinese person in Beijing? Does anybody think for a second if the Taliban put down their weapons that it wouldn't be a freer and safer place? No, we should never forget who the aggressors are. Today there's lots of focus on trying to deliver peace in the Middle East. I worked on it diligently. We made it a better, more stable, more prosperous place because we simply, along with our friends and partners around the world, acknowledge the truth that the aggressor in the region was the Ayatollah. It wasn't the Arab Gulf states, it wasn't the Jewish people in Israel, it was the leadership in the nation of Iran that presented aggressive risk not only to Israel and to the Gulf states, but to each and every one of us. No, we know who the aggressors are, and we know who the lovers of peace are. And it is absolutely essential that while we engage and we have dialogue and we speak and we hope and we pray, but we speak truth about those who are undermining the very efforts that you all came here to Seoul today to work and to move forward. We know the elements of this peace. Prime Minister Rufini, you talked about it. This is about prosperity. It's about property rights, about freedom. It's about economic development for all peoples of the world. And we all know that we want clean water and clean air for every citizen of the world. But we know, too, that delivering on the next generation of energy, clean energy, that is sufficient and affordable for every person, especially those who are suffering today because they can't turn the lights on or they can't turn the air conditioning on, things that we take for granted in so many places of the world. We know that we must make sure that we deliver on this basic constituent of peace, the basic prosperity, the energy that is needed to deliver for the poorest food security and deliver comfort and peace for those who suffer today. There is hope. That hope comes from speaking truth. And now I want to close by speaking about the idea of a federation. So we're here today as part of a gathering of the Universal Peace Federation. America is familiar with federations. We had one at the start. It was called the Articles of Confederation. It was insufficient for governing a nation, but it is wholly sufficient for assisting in delivering peace around the world. The very concept of a federation suggests that there is no center point. There is no command and control structure. Rather, what it requires is each of the constituent communities each of the governments, each of the non-governmental organizations, each of the leaders, each of you in this room today, to remain resolved, to speak the truth, and to live in hope and with joy. This will not come, this peace, this universal peace, this will not come from the top down. This will come from the hard work and efforts of all of you in this room, by the various leaders that we have heard from today, making clear that we understand who the aggressors are and who the peace-loving people are, that we speak truth about this, that we are hopeful for our future, and we are dedicating it to deliver it. No one will order peace. Peace will be ordered by the love and the kindness and the joy and the hard work of those who come together as part of this leadership conference, and those who, when we depart, when we decamp from this place in a day or two, will go back to their communities, they will go back to their schools, they will go back to their families, and they will continue to work on this very problem, this very goal, this very objective that we all know is so central to humanity and to the dignity of every human being. Bless you for taking time to come here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Let us all be truthful and hopeful, and let us, as part of this federation, deliver the very peace here in the peninsula and all around the world that every human being so desires and so deserves. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
말씀 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you for your keynote address. The 70th Secretary General of the United States. Next keynote address will be delivered by Jim Rogers, the Senior Advisor of UPF International, Chairman of the Bill and Interest. He is one of the three investors. He is the co-founder of the Quantum Fund and Soros Fund Manager. He is a founder of RICI. He studied history in Yale University, and he read philosophy in Oxford University in Britain. Would you please welcome him with a big round of applause?
Thank you very, very much. I am delighted to be here once again. Before I start, I do want to say, what happened to in Japan to the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister, was a tragedy for all of us. It's an absurdity. There is never an excuse to murder someone, never, ever, ever, and yet that's what happened. And I, anyway, mourn the loss, and I hope all of you too. And I hope that we do not have murder, assassination, any other attempts like that to change history and to change the future of the world. I also am always astonished when I come to find out, Reverend Moon and Mother Moon were probably the only people in the world who could get together a lot of people in the name of peace. A lot of people talk about it, but Reverend Moon and Mother Moon have done it. Here we all are, hundreds of people from all over the world, but they've done it more than once. This is not the first time this has happened, and it will not be the last time. So they act on it and get it done. I was a little bit astonished this week in Korea that a Korean politician actually acted and said no. We all have to say no if we're really going to get peace and change the world. But we had an American politician who went to Taiwan and poked the Chinese in the eye. The Chinese said, don't do it. She did it anyway. Poke, poke, poke. She came here to Seoul, and the president of Korea, Mr. Yoon, said, I will not see you. I don't want to be part of your war. I don't want to be part of your poke, poke, poke. So I hope that all of us have the strength and courage to say no. We're not going to have a war. We're going to change things. I heard a lot of people today talk about deterrence. Sure, deterrence is great. But what is even better is engagement. If we engage with other people, if we don't shoot ex-prime ministers, if we talk to them, we can probably change the world. The North Koreans say they want to talk to us. We say we want to talk to them, but nobody will do it. Mr. Yoon did it, started doing it anyway. Mr. Trump started doing it anyway. So I hope that all of us can act instead of just talking about it. And since we're talking about Korea, you know, if a Martian landed in Korea and looked around, he would say, what is this? What is this? You all speak the same language? You all use the same chopsticks? You all eat the same rice? You have the same ancestors? 500 years ago on the Korean Peninsula, a Korean general defeated an invading foreign army. They were all Koreans. That battlefield happened to be in what is now North Korea, but nobody said, wait a minute, this is someplace else. This is going to be North Korea someday. The soldiers all got together in what is now North Korea and defeated an invading army. And South Korea became and remained independent 500 years ago. And nobody was fighting about whether it was North or South. They were fighting because we were all Koreans. We all had the same ancestors. And Koreans today have the same ancestors. This can be done and should be done. And if it is done, or when it is done, this peninsula can be the single most exciting place in the world. If you look at your globe, you will see there are 80 million people on the Chinese border, and it could be an astonishing economy and society. The Russians want it. Many Chinese want it. Many people in North Korea want it. Many people in South Korea want it. The Japanese are against it, but most everybody else wants it. So if the South Koreans and the North Koreans say, listen, we don't want this madness anymore. We don't want to spend billions of US dollars and won on defense every year. Do you know how much North Korea spends on defense? Do you know how much South Korea spends on defense? That is billions and billions and billions of won. If you had that won and you could spend it on schools or highways or hospitals or who knows what else, oh my gosh. Hanbando, the Korean Peninsula, can be and will be for 10 or 20 years the most exciting place in the world once you stop spending all that. And by the way, I'm an American. We're spending a lot too on the Korean Peninsula. Can you imagine if we all had all of that money that we could spend on other things? This would be an extremely exciting place. In the north, they have a lot of labor, educated, disciplined labor, cheap labor, and lots of natural resources. In the south, you have unbelievable management ability. You have unbelievable capital raising ability. You put those two together, 80 million people on the Chinese border. What an exciting and wonderful country this could be with lots of extra money. Some people don't, I don't use the word unification because for some reason that scares some people in South Korea. I much prefer to just say open Korea. If you open the DMZ, can you imagine what an unbelievably exciting country this is going to be? A peninsula this is going to be. Korea has been here for a few thousand years. Once you open the DMZ, Korea will figure out what to do. Don't worry, the Korean people will solve this problem, and we will have peace again, and the Korean Peninsula will be an extremely, extremely exciting place and an unbelievably prosperous place. And all of you can come here and sing and dance and buy stocks or open businesses or whatever you want to do, because this will be the most exciting, peaceful place in the world. So I hope there comes a time when we can have this conference a few kilometers north of here, and we can all sing and dance with other Koreans and other citizens of the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
네, 말씀 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you for the keynote address, Jim Rogers, the senior advisor to UPF International.
자, 이제
Now we are going to have the Universal Peace Charter proposal ceremony.
네, 평화헌장 발의는 댄 버튼 세계 평화
The proposal will be made by the co-chairman of the IAPP, Don Burton. Would you please welcome the co-chairman, Don Burton, with a big round of applause.
자, 평화헌장 발의를 하도록 하겠습니다.
That we are going to make a proposal for the Peace Charter, Universal Peace Charter.
다시 한번 큰 박수로 환영해
Would you
주십시오.
please welcome them with a big round of applause one more time?
Some of the new people who are here because I think it's important that we expand our sphere of influence as much as possible. I have a speech here which my wife, Dr. Samia Burton, did give me this year, so I didn't come up here unprepared. But because it's pretty lengthy and because you've heard so many great speakers today, I just want to make about 3 points that I think are very important, and then we'll get on with this very important signing of this document. First of all, I want to thank Mother Moon and her husband, Father Moon, for all the wonderful things they've done for the world, working toward peace and putting their money where their mouth is. Many people talk about peace and sing about peace, but they don't really do anything about it. She does, she has, and she will continue to do so, even though it's very costly. Now, the thing I want to talk about real briefly is some of the things that have been accomplished by Mother Moon and the others who are working with her at the leadership conference. First of all, she helped us start the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace. We now have over 9,700 members around the world, 9,700. And they represent 93 countries, but we need more. We need many from Africa. Africa is one of the areas of the world that has been neglected. When you hear about problems in the world, you hear about the United States, you hear about China, you hear about North Korea, you hear about many countries, but you don't hear much about Africa. So I would like to see the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace work more to make sure that the problems in Africa are well known. So I'd like for the members of Africa who are here today to tell their friends and neighbors to join the IAPP so the message that needs to get out about the problems Africa faces gets known. So please take that message back. The other thing I wanted to mention briefly is 40 years ago, Father Moon and Mother Moon started a newspaper in the United States, the Washington Times. In my opinion, it's one of the few newspapers in America that continually tell the truth and work to solve problems that face the United States and the rest of the world. And so this past week, we celebrated the 40th year anniversary of the Washington Times. So I'd like to say today, and if you don't mind, I'd like to give a round of applause for the Washington Times and Mother and Father Moon for all the things they've done. And there's so many more important things I was going to talk about, but I don't think you want me to go into all this, so I'll just say it's nice to be with you again. Please remember how important it is to work for world peace, and thank Mother and Father Moon for all the things they've done now and in the past and will in the future. Thank you very much.
I just want to add briefly to what Honorable Dan Burton said. We are now building on the foundation of the Seoul Declaration that was presented in February in World Summit 2022. We have now prepared a resolution that calls for developing a peace charter in advance that not only seeks to promote reunification, reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula, but globally. Part of that package is an ideal of one day creating an Asia-Pacific Union that you heard Prime Minister Hun Sen mention, and that we work together on a broader level to promote universal peace. So that's the nature of this resolution, and there are 10 people that have been asked to come forward. I hope that Mrs. Duggan and Dr. Famularo can guide those people to the stage along with Dr. Yoon Young Ho, and they will sign the resolution and we'll have a grand finale. So if Dr. Yoon Young Ho, if you would come to the stage, and if Franco Famularo would actually guide the people to the stage, and Mrs. Duggan can help guide them to the stage.
네, 자 평화헌장 발의에 대한 자세한 내용을 들으셨고요. 자 이제 대표자분들께서 발의문에 사인을 하려고 지금 준비를 하고 계시는데요.
Now the delegates are ready to sign this peace charter, standing in line. The co-chairman of the organizing committee, Yoon Young-ho, and the chairman of the UPF International, Thomas Walsh, Briggy Raffini, the chairman of the Africa Sensat, and Munyana, the chairman of the Korea UPF, and Dan Burton, the co-chairman of the committee of IAPPA, SOXPC, the Prime Minister of Hun Sen, and Mariel Barreto, the human rights activist, Francisco Rojas, the president of Ravenna UN University, Dalim Santiago, the Speaker of the House of the Benes, and Imboni Samuel, the chairman of the IAPD Africa, and Jerem Yajos, the advisor to UPF. They are all ready and actually signing this peace charter one by one. Once we complete the signing, we will declare the Universal Peace Charter. Those who completed the signing, please stand by on the stage. After the completion of signing, we're going to have the press the button and declare and announce the Universal Peace Charter around the world. Delegates have been signing this Universal Peace Charter one by one. When we are done with that, we're going to declare the Universal Peace Charter. Proclamation ceremony will be held. By pressing the button prepared, we will declare the Universal Peace Charter. Please stand by.
오늘 이 자리에 함께하신 여러분께서 발의문에 사인을 해주고 계시는데요. 자, 사인이 거의 마무리가 됐습니다.
I think we are almost finished.
자, 사인을 마치신 분들께서는
Those who finished signing, please join us in the declaration proclamation ceremony. Please stand in line to press the button.
아직도 사인이 진행되고 있는데요.
Still signing is going on.
여러분께서 함께하시는 만큼 더 의미가 있지 않나 하는 생각이 듭니다.
A lot of us delegates are joining us in signing ceremony. So please stand in front of the button.
제 구령에 따라서 함께 버튼을 눌러
Please press the button on the count of 3.
발휘되겠습니다. 네. 자, 손을 올려 주시고요.
Please raise your hand.
함께하도록 하겠습니다. One,
Please place your hand on the button. 1, 2, 3. Touch.
다시 한번 큰 박수로 축하해 주십시오.
Let's give them a warm round of congratulatory
오늘 함께해
applause.
주신 정상급 지도자와 대외 귀빈 그리고 각 분야 최고 전문가와 지도자 여러분,
The leaders of the world
기조 연설해 주신 모든
and
분들께 다시 한번
those
감사의
who made the
말씀드립니다.
congratulatory remarks and keynote address, let me extend my thanks to all of you. We are going to start our march toward a new unified world and unified Korea. Now this concludes the Summit 22 Leadership Conference. Thanks for joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, you now may adjourn to lunch and be back in the ballroom at 2 p.m. for the fact-finding report from the USA delegation, and be in the Emerald Room for the SENSAD Youth Conference, and in the Ruby Jade rooms for the IAPD Africa. At 4 p.m., we're back in this hall all together for the session on religious freedom, which is very important. And then at 7 p.m., we have a special performance here of the Little Angels. We have a full day ahead of us. Have a nice lunch. See you soon.